All other metrics are really about what is going right or what is going wrong. Free cash flow is that one really particular metric that talks about time, right? So for a business that's struggling, this tells you how much time do you have. You can then make a decision. Can we go methodically? Can we go with a great deal of investigation, or are we in ER and we have to do medical triage right now?
Welcome to the Alphapreneurs podcast. I'm your host, Rayhan Aleem. I'm also the founder of 𝗪𝗵𝘁 Partners, a bookkeeping business based in Dubai, and TaxStar, a tax technology startup automating corporation tax returns. Join me on each episode as we talk to inspiring Dubai-based entrepreneurs who share their stories, challenges, and secrets on building world-class businesses. Today on the Alphapreneurs podcast, I'm joined by Avinash Vora. He's an entrepreneur and a managing partner at 𝗀𝗵𝘁 Consulting, where he helps businesses around the world with operations and strategy. Prior to this, he led the Defiance Group as CEO and executive director, growing it to a $30 million business with more than 2,700 people across Africa and Asia. Avinash, thank you very much for joining me on the show today. So we've known each other for a good number of years. You used to be my coach at one point, my accountability coach at EOA. And I've really learned and continue the learnings that you've provided me and the group back in those days. For those who don't know you, for those who don't know what you've done, do you want to give us a quick introduction about yourself and what kind of things that you've done?
Sure, yeah. Firstly, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been really interesting to watch this thing grow, and I'm glad to be a part of it. So as a background, I'm a Dubai kid. I grew up here, went to school here, went to college in the States, and I joined my family business, which is still around. It's based in India, textile and apparel manufacturing. Started there and spent 10 years really fully focused on that one business. My wife and I met in India, moved back here, and kind of started a journey of really expanding into a lot of different verticals, different areas, and completely different styles of business. So I spend most of my time now doing coaching, advisory, and consulting work with teams that are in quite a few different areas, but primarily teams that are looking to scale in a sustainable way, looking to grow. And I love working with leaders who are going through the same struggles that I did when I started out. But yeah, a wide variety of industries. I'm in agriculture, I'm in technology, consulting, coaching, advisory work, fundraising, really all over the space.
I think you're underplaying yourself. I mean, you've got a massive trove of experience that you can dip into, whether it's funding or setting up a business or working in a family business. And I want to kind of dissect into these different types of aspects of knowledge that you have that we can share with our audience so they can learn from you. I want to start from the beginning. This podcast, I've mainly had entrepreneurs who are based in Dubai, few from the UK and few from other places, but mainly from Dubai. And, you went to Dubai College, very prestigious school, which I'm sure there's many of your cohorts that have done amazing things now. Having grown up in the city and gone to the US to study, you've ran a massive business in India, and then you came back. What are some of the things that you've seen over the last, in your journey, that really makes setting up a business here different to other places? And how do you feel about the future of entrepreneurship in Dubai?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think for me, the big first change was, obviously in university, I'm not in a business, right? I'm at university, I'm studying, didn't really, especially as an international student in America, even really have much opportunity, even as a startup scene was exploding, to explore entrepreneurship there with the regulations on visa. But coming to India and just having this kind of, doors blown wide open of the style and mechanism in which business is done there. It really felt like the Wild West. My dad's an entrepreneur himself, and I grew up seeing how his business here ran. And really, it was like the first few months, I really felt like my life was very sheltered in Dubai. Not in a bad way, but just more in a way that um, I think just the basic things to get started here have for many, many years and continue to be very straightforward. It's not that hard to start a business. You pick a jurisdiction, whether that's a mainland, whether that's one of the free zones, whether that's even outside of Dubai and Abu Dhabi or Ras Al Khaimah or Sharjah or whatever. And with a couple of bits of paper, a day, maybe 2 days, and some emails, you can start a business. It's not that hard to file your taxes here. It's not really that hard to get a high quality office or to get good infrastructure for a physical business and manufacturing, or if you're in a service business, to get good infrastructure for that. And as time has gone on, I think it's become easier. It's become better. Obviously, Dubai is much bigger now than when I was growing up, but with that has also come more opportunity. Probably the size of the opportunity, I think, is reasonable to argue, was much bigger back then, but it was much harder to get.
Yeah.
I think now there's still big opportunity, but those crazy industrial opportunities where people were just doing what can frankly be described as arbitrage and making generational wealth, maybe that doesn't exist anymore. And I don't know where in the world that still does. But I think here the types of opportunity are bigger. And I think really when I look at my parents, when they came here in the 80s, that was a risk of a life, right? You risked everything for that. And much like them, I've heard of stories of people who came here even before that, decades before. And I mean, just hard to imagine, right? You've basically given everything up for like the smallest sliver of hope. I don't think you have to do that anymore. I think it's a safe place to come. The quality of life is great. And I just look at the other kind of great places in the world that historically have been great for entrepreneurship. I don't know if those places are on the up the way that I feel Dubai is still on the up. And to me, the last thing is just everyone is going to have some component of family in their life, right? You're working for something. It could be just yourself. It could be for your wife and kids, or your husband, or your parents, or your children, siblings, whatever it is. So for me, like, safety is the most important thing, right? I want my kids to be safe. I want my wife to be safe. I want my parents to be safe and feel safe. Healthcare is great. Education is great. The roads are great. That is important. And I think Dubai didn't lose that. That was always great when I was growing up, and Dubai didn't lose that. That's continued to be, I think, a critical focus for the government here. And I'm glad to see that it doesn't feel in any way compromised.
Yeah, that safety net for an entrepreneur is very, very important, because if you're coming here to set up a business, then having that safety of knowing your family are, safe, and your children are having good education, you've got the healthcare. That's very important. You mentioned that there were opportunities before in Dubai that you saw, where now you don't necessarily have those opportunities now. Do you want to give some examples of industries that were quite hot back then, but now they're not as much? But is there any opportunities now that you see that entrepreneurs can get into?
So I think, especially talking like 30 plus years ago, manufacturing was still, there was many more types of manufacturing were possible here. And in a lot of those cases, you could just be first because there's nobody else.
Yeah.
So take my dad's example. He came here and started buying clothes that were made in the UAE. Nobody was doing that. Or you think back to maybe even the early 80s and the 70s. If somebody came here and was the first distributor for Coke, or the first distributor for Cadbury's, or something like that, right? It might have been one of the locals here. It might have been somebody else. It might have been somebody who came here as an expat. But these very simple things that you take for granted now, those were things that somebody was first. And they weren't first 100 years ago. They were first 40 years ago or 30 years ago. I think those kinds of opportunities just don't exist anymore. Dubai doesn't have many more firsts, right? In terms of at least breaking a new ground in an industry, or a new type of product or things like that. The first we're going to see now are quite innovation led, right? It'll be something very new. That's the first on a global scale. But in Dubai's and the UAE as a scale for like just this region, I think it's very difficult now to see what's missing here. We have basically everything. The opportunities I see now are, and this is what I love about this place, is that's the opportunity that you could see anywhere in the world, because you can be here and do anything now. I run my business that's got operations in the US, it's got operations in India, we do work in Singapore, we have work in Europe and the UK. And this is just a great place from which we can do that. So, I mean, to answer your question simply, what opportunity could anyone see anywhere? And I think you can mostly, for the most part, do that here. Yeah, it's sure there's a couple of industries where maybe there's not enough people if you're focused on a local market. The population is not that big, but it's big enough. It's got enough wealth that there's still plenty of global, for example, direct-to-consumer brands that have started here and have become global powerhouses, right? But yeah, I would say now the opportunity is, what's an opportunity that exists anywhere in the world? It exists here.
I want to talk about you went to university, you went to college in, I say university college. So you went to college in the US and you graduated, and then you joined your family business straight away, pretty much, right? And it's not like a small shop mom and pop store. It's a fairly substantially large business that you've joined. And you grew up in Dubai, you went to college in the US, and now you're being dumped, not dumped, but you're dragged into a massive business. And it's a family business, so there's a lot of responsibilities and pressure on your shoulders. We have a lot of clients, and a lot of our crowd are from family businesses as well. So you graduating and then going straight into like a big business, how was that experience for you? And what were the things that you were doing in the first year of that business, in terms of, what were your targets? Can you share some of your failures, some of your successes? What kind of tips would you give for someone who is about to go into that situation?
Yeah, I think, and everyone who's had the similar start of journey that I did, I think will resonate with this. And I know many of my friends in the same place have the same thing. Ultimately, it's just another business, right? And I think that's the really hard part to just remember, that, as you said, the responsibility, the kind of weight, and very, very honestly, our business is not in a particularly amazing place financially. It had struggled for some time, and the general health of the business, really across the board, was not super strong.
This is when you joined the business.
Yeah. Just as I joined the business, it was kind of, I'll say, approaching a bit of a slump at its worst point. And so I had a couple of challenges. The first one was, we didn't have that much time. Like, the business wasn't going to be able to coast for 2 or 3 years. That was one. The second thing was, it was a very technical business. And I didn't really know much at 22, but this kind of technical, I didn't know really anything. And number 3, it was in the kind of environment, which, what I mean by that is like large labor intensive, heavy industry in India, where, the outside factors are also quite important in a business like this. That was also something to really contend with, and I think is a very natural part of running a business like that, which I didn't realize. So for me, my kind of day one thing was, I just need to understand where we are, genuinely, actually understand where we are. Number 2, I need to figure out what are the things that I need to learn, in which order. And 3, how do I actually learn those? Because, the one thing I'll say about the education in the textile and apparel industry, this is across the world, it's terrible. There's no great resources. There's no great figures that people could really point to and say, like, go listen to this person or go read that person's work to really fully internalize and understand this, right? Like, I don't know, 𝗪𝗏𝘠 is who I would send someone to learn about valuation, right? Like, just go pick up his books or read his blog or his podcast, and you'll absorb one of the best people in the world for this thing. I just don't think that exists in textile education. And if it does, after well over 20 years, I didn't find it. And so that was really it. It was figuring out where we were and learning enough that I could try to figure out how to solve those problems. It was a set business, so it had a lot of the team already in place. And then my next goal was just kind of like, I went around, spent time in every single department, starting in the office, going down to the shop floor. And for me, you know, I'm quite hands-on when it comes to learning. So it wasn't just learning how this machine works. It was learning to operate the machines. It was learning to figure out how to mix color or how to change a needle on a sewing machine or a knitting machine. And I think for me, the big failures were at the start, the failure, I think, of every 22-year-old, hubris mostly, right? Like, oh, I've learned enough now that I can make a decision about this thing. No, I still didn't learn enough. Or
I think you never, as an entrepreneur, even whether you're 22 or 42, right? Decision making is always fraught with lack of information. And you have to kind of be very comfortable with the fact that you don't have a lot of information and you got to make decisions.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that comfort comes with wisdom and experience and the knowledge that the last time when I didn't have all the information, I still had all the other experiences that I've accumulated throughout my career to guide me and kind of give me a bit of an edge in this asymmetry of information. But as a, you know, as a 22-year-old who didn't have any of that, I was just kind of just walking with my eyes open and forward. That was really my kind of policy. And one thing I'll say is I was very fortunate that I was able to learn from failure. You know, I was able to make small mistakes so that the big ones didn't get made. I think that was a big learning for me. My team had failed a lot, and so I got to, you know, capitalize on that learning. But really, I think the biggest thing was, after a certain point, it was very obvious to me that I got nothing to lose now, because we were in the position where either this was going to work or it was better to kind of stop just burning effort, resources, time, money, and try to make something of that asset. I'd say the kind of turning point for us was when I just got a grip of the business. I always tell people I work with that like the most magical time of being an entrepreneur is when you can hold the entire business in your hands. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't matter how big or small the business is. It just means that, like, somehow there's this, I don't know if you've experienced this, but there's like this perfect moment where every single operation, every single process, every single number, everything just kind of fits in your head at the same time. And you can just draw all of these connections and make decisions with this, like, what feels like perfect information. And of course it's not. And of course you're missing things, but it feels like that. And, you know, it's like flow state, but for running a business maybe. And that was really, I think, where things changed very drastically for us. You know, I really built what I would say in the industry, at least in India, was the best team in the country. I got very comfortable technically, and I think it allowed my team to also be their best because, you know, if they wanted to make changes or if they wanted to propose things, they didn't have to justify them. I either understood or I didn't. And if I didn't, I had to go learn. And if I did, then their justification made sense or it didn't. But there was no like, let me try to convince somebody who doesn't understand what I'm talking about. We had old machines, but exceptional machines. And we focused really hard on having the best engineering and maintenance department to kind of keep everything running at its peak. and to keep everything running without having to waste money and time in reinvesting into new machines. It was, how can we extract, because we didn't have the money, right? How can we extract outsized value from something that's 25 years old at this point, had a service life that ended 15 years ago, but now we got to compete with our neighbor who just bought something 5 months ago. And we kind of worked with what we had, and that resource constrained environment, for me, that was exciting. I found that interesting, but I also found it kind of gave us solutions that other people didn't have. And that's what I was always looking for. Like, what's the non-obvious answer here? And usually it was simple. You know, people get blinders because they're doing something for so long, for the same, in the same way for this really, really long time. And it might be something that was passed down by your boss or your mentor or whatever. And just like fresh outside perspective, I think really brings a lot.
I think you've raised a really important point here in terms of running a business as an entrepreneur. I've come across many entrepreneurs who they go through the growth phase, they get to a certain point and they're like chilling, right? They don't look at what's going on in terms of their finances. They don't look at what's going on with the people or what's going on with the customers. And then they slowly start to crash, and then they start panicking, and they're having to re-understand what's going on in the business. Now, I think the important point you came across is that kind of Zen state of, you know, what everything means in the numbers and processes in your business. So, for example, in my business, I know that if we've got a pipeline of X, then we need Y amount of accountants to join and to then make up for that demand. Or if we have a certain amount of books which have not been completed yet, then I know something's going on in the business where we need to make sure that what's going on in terms of why we're not closing some of these books. And I think whether you are on that chilling mode or growth mode, you still need to be in a state where you understand these important numbers. Otherwise, you will completely lose track. And I think the way you've described that, when you first joined the job, you know, humbly, you didn't come in and say, "Oh, you know, my business, I'm going to do it my way." You actually went to learn the different components and different departments. I think that's very amicable for an entrepreneur who's kind of on that situation where they're almost lost touch of their business. What kind of advice would you give them to kind of get back to that state where they know all of the key metrics and numbers in their business?
Yeah, I had this real distaste for getting email reports. You know, we had, I mean, hundreds of staff members, thousands of workers. I was getting over 100 daily reports, 50 weekly reports, and 24 monthly reports and quarterly. I just got very tired of this. And you know, that holding everything in your hand. Eventually my business got too big and I couldn't. And then you're kind of like holding water or sand, and it's like kind of dripping out, and it's a bit hard. And so my solution to this was I spent a weekend and I designed a singular A4 piece of paper. And on one side, it had every single number I care about from yesterday across my entire business. And obviously the hard part is just finding really 25 numbers, right, that fit on a single piece of paper across, I think at the time, 3 separate, you know, independent verticals. But that's the point, right? It's like this I can hold in my head, and I can see this every single day, and it takes me 5 minutes, and I understand in this 5 minutes exactly where we are, what the health of my business is, where the challenges are, and where things are going well. And every single morning, by the time I came to work, my assistant would put that on my desk, and that would stay with me. And it was always, and I wanted a piece of paper so I could write on it. The tangible, physical, tactile sensation, I think, has more value, at least to me, than Excel on the screen, where it feels a little more abstract. And then it also became my cheat sheet for the rest of the day, right? I'm now at 4 p.m. and I'm drafting an email, and I was like, oof, I'm double check. And I just like slide it over, and I can see, okay, here's actually where we are. It's very simple, right? Like reporting works. But the point with the reporting is that you can't be overwhelmed by too much information,
Mm.
especially when you're at that stage where your scale isn't just the scale of that report or that department or that vertical or that person. As a leader, as an entrepreneur, your scale is too big, your scope is too big, and you have too many things to look at and worry about than seeing the entirety of the entire reporting function of your business. I think the other way to get back in touch is to really look at how meetings are run in your business, to focus on making sure that they're valuable and that the ones that you are in as, again, the person whose scale and scope is likely the biggest in the organization, to make sure that those are truly effective and that every single minute that's being consumed by those is giving you outsized value. Because for the most part, in a meeting, you're not really changing anything about your business. You're just talking. And so how can we make that be more effective and be more useful? And then honestly, the last thing is cash, right? You got to look at where your business is from a cash perspective. We work with not big teams, 20, 25 people, and the founder of the business who's involved on a day-to-day basis doesn't know the cash position of their company to within like one order of magnitude sometimes. And that's like that to me, that's really quite alarming. Like how do you not know, will you make Monday or will you make next year? And your business is struggling like that. Those are the kinds of things that I think you really should just have, no matter how big your company is, you should have under your thumb if you're involved.
Yeah, no, great insight. And thanks for sharing that. I want to talk about the dynamics of being in a family business. Someone who's an entrepreneur and they also have a family business and they want to bring family members into it, or they've already got you're new to a family business. What kind of advice can you give that entrepreneur? I know you've done husband and wife business as well. You've also done current business as a solo entrepreneur as well. If I was to join my family business, what kind of things do I need to do to succeed in that environment?
I think, frankly, especially if I look in the textile industry in India, we had it relatively simple, right? Like there's a lot of these businesses that have split, or the next generation hasn't gotten along and things like that. For me, my kind of first point was, as I said, I didn't know anything. I didn't know enough. I had to learn a lot. So I took this as an opportunity. My parents still lived here. I had my dad a phone call away to ask, how does this work? And to be humble about that and just be like, I don't understand. Maybe I can't say that in front of an employee or a new recruit or a client, but yeah, I can pick up the phone and call my dad and ask him, I don't understand how this works. Walk me through this. And not just the vast experience he had, because he also started in the same industry right out of university. So not just that like wide array of experience, having worked in America, the Middle East and India, and worked with not just us as a manufacturer, but bought from dozens of manufacturers all over the world. So not just having that like incredible wealth of knowledge, I used it often. But then the other thing was the success and benefits that I brought to the business and the failures that I brought to the business. I'm bringing that to my family too. And that's, that's something that I took as a very serious responsibility. I think that my dad kind of saw that. And I think that was also what led him, frankly, and I will say with the hindsight of experience, give me more and more responsibility, probably a little earlier than maybe was sensible.
He had faith in you.
He had faith. And, I can look back and say that for the most part, in the grand scale, it was well placed. But I made dumb mistakes, right? Everyone does. And I had hubris and I had an attitude when I probably had to learn the hard way how to fix those things. And then for me, the other thing was the only thing I was interested in, my sister, she should come and work with us as well. And she one of the few people in our business, in our family, who's actually worked in another business and was employable. But no, she eventually came. She runs a business now. And I couldn't wait for that. But I would say, like, for me, it was really understanding that I can be humble with my family and I can be vulnerable with them in a way that I can't with anybody else, even though we're kind of colleagues. And then one thing, I think we worked really hard on a family, and this took effort. We really work hard on having business time and family time, and not letting those two get conflated. And I've seen, not only with our own family the hard way, but also with other family businesses, either that I've worked with or that my friends run. When that line gets a bit too blurry, I think that's when it becomes hard. And I think that's why people are very apprehensive about, kind of either getting into that boundary, or once that has already been the case, you're in your family business, then it's kind of hard to separate out again. So I'm very mindful of that. I think everyone else in my family is too. We'll catch each other out. Of course, sometimes it's natural. It's such a big part of our family to have all of us in this business. But we also try to enjoy ourselves the way a family would go on holiday. Oh, okay, great. We're in this beautiful place, seeing this amazing sight or eating this lovely food. We don't really need to talk about Q4 cash flows just at this moment. It can wait until the plane. You know what I mean?
I guess an interesting point that you've come across is that just like how if you're in a husband and wife business where you would want to separate the personal side and the business side, you need to do that within the family business. But also, I guess, because you have a business as well as your personal relationship, you kind of, am I right in thinking, I've not been in family business, so I don't know, but am I right in thinking you have to spend extra time and extra effort building the bonds and making sure that, there's no loose ends in, about what you said about this business or this decision and all of that? Are you having to do that as well as in a family that runs a business?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I just think and there's maybe a tangent to what you said, but maybe also part of it. But I think it's really important for people to just define those areas, right? So, my wife and I have very different styles. We have great strengths that we each have. And I'm quite lucky that our weaknesses are relatively complementary, right? So she's very strong in areas that I'm not, and vice versa. And so just kind of, we stay in our lanes, right? It's not productive for me to really invest too much of my effort in areas that she's good at and that are her strengths. And if I do, I'm not giving much value. I'm there as a sounding board, and I'm there as someone to be there to just have questions asked of. And I use my wife for this all the time. But we are kind of clear in that area that this is what she does, this is what she's good at, and here's what I do, and here's what I'm good at. And then we have kind of work time, right? So we talk about work things during work time. And that means that, for example, we're having dinner with the kids, we're not going to talk about work on the table. Or if we're out, just us watching a movie, we're just going to watch a movie or have dinner and not talk about work. I just think that having that, it doesn't have to be a formal relationship that this is my colleague until 5 p.m. and then at 5:01 this becomes my wife, or this becomes my sister, or this becomes my dad. I just think having that kind of slight balance of, we have personal time and we have work time. It just means that personal time continues to be personal time. Because I think it's very rare it goes the other way, that work time becomes personal time. I think more likely you're going to see the personal time and then eventually that goes away and everything is work time. And that's what I don't want. And I think my family is, mostly on board with that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. You've obviously, like I said, you've done the family business, you've done the husband and wife business, and now you have done the kind of solo entrepreneur business as well. I believe you've done a few ventures with partners as well.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to the entrepreneur who is in a family business versus a spouse business with a spouse, or solo entrepreneur? Would you say, do you prefer being in a family business? What's your preference in terms of the different states? And at what point is it good, in your opinion, to take that journey, whether it's family with a spouse or solo entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the hard part was when I was younger, I really, in sometimes, and I really felt that I wish I was the sole decision maker on this.
Mm.
Um, and for individual decisions, I think it's natural to feel that sometimes. Um, but now if I really think about it, I'm not solo in anything anymore. Either it's my family or I have amazing partners that I work with, people that, again, as I said, we're very complementary in our strengths and weaknesses. Um, and they're people that I can rely on. Sometimes I think you kind of have to take a hard look at yourself. And I did that a while back and realized that they're just things I'm not great at. And I could invest a huge amount of time to attempt to maybe make those skills stronger. Maybe a lot of time. Or I could partner with someone who's excellent at that and has made their entire career about being excellent at that. Am I going to potentially get better than having that partner by doing this myself? I just don't think that's the case. And the reason I know, at least for me, I tried that and it didn't work. You invest a huge amount of time. What's that time costing you? That time's either costing you time you could have spent in your business, time you could have spent with your family, or time you could have spent working on some other aspect of yourself that would have given the result where this one didn't. So yeah, maybe that's partnering, maybe that's hiring someone. But what I found is the kinds of businesses that I work on now, we have a lot of manufacturing, we have a lot of industry. So I'm trying to do more on serviced base when I start now. I just don't think it makes a huge amount of sense to attempt to do everything yourself. And AI can't automate everything away. We're still quite far away from that. I think the people who do fully solo businesses, you can do well. And I think I see a lot of people who have done really tremendously well. But for me, maybe it's because I have a lot of things going on. I like the idea that I have somebody I can rely on and somebody I can trust and somebody that is there to kind of take a little bit of the load when it's required and always be with one eye on the business. So whether that's my family, whether that's my wife, whether that's my partners, I like sleeping. I like spending time with my kids. And the fully solo journey I just think I'm past that now.
I guess, and I'm paraphrasing probably, but many entrepreneurs that I've come across, they've been an employee. I was an employee, then I set up my own business, and one of the reasons why they moved to entrepreneurship is because they want to do everything themselves. They want to have freedom, and I guess what you're saying is it's okay to be a solo entrepreneur and have that freedom, but I guess and it's difficult to find partners in businesses who you can trust, but when you find the right partner, you're able to then really expand or work on other things as well, because in business 1 + 1 isn't 2. 1 + 1 could be 10 exponential when you have the right dynamics around you. And I guess, am I right in thinking that's your philosophy in business?
That's one, but the other thing is I just don't believe that this mantra that entrepreneurship is hard and it has to be a grind and you have to sacrifice. I just don't like that. We've been to EO events together where like the first thing the speaker says when they open their mouth is like, entrepreneurship is a hard journey. It's a grind. And I just don't like that. It can be nice. It can be nice, right? Like I'm famously eminently unemployable, right? No one's going to give me a job. And I never had a job. I never worked anywhere. So I need to have entrepreneurship be the thing that is fulfilling also. And it makes me happy and it makes me feel like I can spend time with my family. And also have time for myself, and also have time to, go on a date with my wife, and also have time to travel and go on a holiday, and also have exciting things at work. And that whole, you have to grind, you have to sacrifice, you have to give things up, you have to, put other things on the back seat. Oh, you have to work nights, so you have to do this and do that. I just don't want to do that anymore. And, a really easy way to do that is when you see somebody that you want to work with and they're great and they think you're great, maybe work with them, because that's two people for, the job of one person.
Mm.
Or if your family is doing something and you can participate in that, it's great. Now you have a whole family who's trying to do the role of what one person might be. And so everyone gets to have a little bit of time. And yeah, I just, I think it's definitely the 1+1 is more than 2 for sure. And, 2 very well aligned people can definitely do more work than 3 or 4 or 10 unaligned people. And 2 people who are with, kind of complementary skill sets that can have an even bigger multiplier effect than that. All of that's true. But the simple thing is, I like to work with people that I like to work with. I like spending time with people I enjoy. My partners are people that, independently of the work that we do together, we're good friends. We see each other and enjoy spending that time with each other. And much like how it is with my family, after work is done, we'll go get dinner or we'll hang out and we're just friends now.
Mm.
And so that's something I enjoy. I don't want to work with somebody who I just don't have like a particularly great feeling that at 5:01, am I going to still enjoy being in the same room with that person? And yeah, maybe I have the benefit now of having had success in my past and, being able to kind of take the risk of not going 110% every single day. But I don't know, I see young people now and I don't think anyone wants to work as hard as maybe I did when I was 22 anymore. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I just think culturally things are different now, and this 1990s business speaker circuit of it's hard to be an entrepreneur. I just don't think that's true. And so for me, like that's the big takeaway, is that it can be easier to not be 100% alone. And it's not just that it's hard to be alone because you don't have anyone to rely on. All the responsibilities are yours, as well as all the decisions and successes. It's scary too sometimes, right? Especially if it's something that nobody could possibly help you on. And I think besides being alone and scary, that feeling of just being alone, sometimes that's hard. It's hard. I felt that even in my own family business a couple of times, where it's like this feeling that if I don't figure this out, it's over. That's not like a particularly, or at least it wasn't. It was powerful in that it made me do whatever I needed to, but I don't think it was a motivational power that I would love to feel again. I don't look back at that and feel, yeah, I want that tomorrow when I wake up in the morning so that I'll work harder. No, I want to feel that, that feeling of success, or that feeling of I solved this amazing problem that had been bothering us for ages, or, I had a great meeting today, or something very small like this email is perfect and I'm going to get this client, right? Like those are the kinds of things that I want to feel motivated for, not the feeling of it's over if I don't get this. Like, I just don't like that.
So with one of your new ventures, 𝗁𝗵 Consulting, one of the things that you're focusing on is coaching for entrepreneurs, for startups, for established businesses as well. And you use a framework called Bloom.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked into it and I was quite intrigued by it because I went through the EOA Accelerator program and I could see that Bloom has a few more elements to it.
Right.
That could be quite useful for entrepreneurs as well. So can you just give us a quick brief on what is the Bloom framework and how can it help entrepreneurs? And are there any success stories that you can share with us that where entrepreneurs have gone through that program?
Yeah. So at a very high level, the Bloom growth system, they call it the Bloom growth operating system, is basically an execution and communication system that focuses on leadership teams and brings them more aligned, more accountable, and helps them very clearly and specifically focus on what to execute for the end goal that is correct for that business.
Mm-hmm.
I tell entrepreneurs and founders that it gives you what you want from your business. So that could be profit, that could be growth, or it could be freedom. And that that seems to be of everything else that's like this, and there's a lot of things like this. It's the one that I want implemented in my business. It's new, and so it kind of takes a modern approach to how businesses are very different to 1995 in 2025 and 2026. And it's got kind of three components. One component is the coach, who kind of is your trainer and coaches you through this journey. Two is the methodology and the operating system itself. And three is software that kind of helps tie it all together.
Mm. And so when an entrepreneur is implementing this in their business, for example, how long does it take for the results to come about? Are there any success stories that you can share that a company has gone through and has gone from X to Y, for example?
I don't want to speak for any companies by taking their names, but just to give you some examples, somebody in Dubai that we both know has gone through the journey, and in 4 or 5 months, I can see them as a company being much healthier, the founder being much freer and happier, but the revenue has gone up, profitability has gone up. That's the kind of thing you tend to see, right? The amount of time it takes, that's a good question. And I think it depends on the business. But I would say that on your very first session, there should be value, and there should be outsized value. You do these kind of full day offsites with your coach. And so the very first one is called a Bloom Day One. And I think you need to take away a lot of value from every single day that you do with your coach. But everyone will take away outsized value on the first day, because just the process has been refined and kind of evidenced over so many different companies. I don't remember the exact number, close to 5,000 or 6,000 organizations on Bloom across the world now. And it's been done, and every single person takes away value from the first day. I think the most value will probably come once it gets slowly rolled out to the entire organization. But we're kind of now after that talking about getting smaller and smaller gains, though there are gains. The biggest value, I think, you're going to take away on the first day, because the tools that you're equipped with on the first day, a simple example of that is how to run effective meetings and how to make meetings the kind of thing that you look forward to. And you look forward to them because they're not a waste of time, because they're super effective, and because everyone is always on the same page, and there's no one who is kind of there just to be informed or to inform. Everyone is an equal participant. I think just that, having this become a part of, you do your day on Monday, and on Tuesday morning you go make this change. Just that alone, I think, for most businesses is a great a great help. But there's other tools. There's tools you take away that are going to be valuable the next morning.
It's not just theory, it's practical as well.
Oh yeah, very much. In fact, I'd say it's almost the other way around. Very little about it is kind of theory that you have to learn. It's more about equipping tools and processes, and taking those into the specific business. It could be anything. This is an industry agnostic framework. It works with businesses that have small teams or very large teams. It works with manufacturing, service. To me, it's about the right tools to make sure that your company can achieve exactly what it needs to, and the how to do that, the what you're doing, and who is going to do that. All of those things, that's part of what's kind of taught in the system.
Yeah, no, it's definitely beneficial for those who want to try it. You obviously, I know you very well, and you don't blow your own trumpet, but I know you've been in many different industries and many different situations. So manufacturing, a farm in the UAE, in the desert, you've run a business, right? Consulting, blockchain, AI, VC, almost, you had kind of like a fund at one point as well.
No, no, never a fund of my own, but I'm an advisor with an investment bank, and I have participated in VC transactions.
Yeah, yeah. You worked as a solopreneur with your husband and wife, with partners, and in the family business. So you have such a depth of knowledge, not just, and some of these businesses are massive and some of them are small, and you have such a wide spectrum of experience when it comes to entrepreneurship. If you were to give a entrepreneur one or two pieces of advice, what would they be?
Firstly, thank you. It's very kind. The two things, and I think it doesn't matter what industry you're in. You're talking about someone who's starting up, right?
Starting up, or maybe they're already in their journey.
Okay.
Because every entrepreneur goes through circles, right? The valley of death as well, as we say in EO.
Yep. So maybe I'll give one for each, right? So for someone who's starting off, I think the biggest thing that I see people make mistakes. I have also made this mistake. And I think has the most outsized impact on potentially turning a new venture from a struggle into success, is to focus almost all your energy on the sales and not on the product. We're in a really different time to even 20 years ago now, where getting your product is so easy. And I don't mean to belittle people who do product. I'm a product person and I'm an ops person. But what I mean by that is, if you want to start a shoe business today, you can get shoes made exactly how you want them, easier than in any other time in history. If you want to start a technology business today and have your product be some technology offering, it is the easiest time in history to ever get something like that done. Whatever it is, right? But selling is so hard now. Understanding to like a really, really fundamental level what your market is, what your marketing is like, what your business development is like, how you're going to acquire customers, what that's going to cost, how you're going to retain them, that entire journey of just the kind of selling side of your business. I think very few people put enough time into that. And I have made this mistake. You get the product sold on day 1 or day 60 or day 365 or whatever it is, right? But after that, the rest of your entire business's success forever will be hinged on, did you manage to identify your market, sell properly, continue to keep those customers loyal, not spend too much on acquiring them so that it's actually profitable to sell to them, so on and so forth. Doesn't matter who you sell to, doesn't matter where you sell, doesn't matter what you sell. Ultimately, businesses are selling something, right? So I think for a new business, I would even go as far as to say, if you spend 100% of your time on that, 100%, and don't even think about your product at all and go start a business, you'll still have a better chance of success than if you spend 0 time on that. And for someone who's already in their journey, for me, it is very, very simple things like look for free cash flow. I would say.
Do you want to define what free cash flow is?
Yeah.
I mean, I can define it, but.
Well, I'll actually ask you to define it in a second. But, the way I always look at it is revenue is vanity.
Yeah.
Profit is sanity. And cash is king.
Yeah.
Right. I am fortunate. I don't have some very large investors to whom certain metrics are important. So for me, the metric that I'm always looking at, and this is in my own businesses, when I'm consulting or advising other businesses, I don't want to look at profit and loss. I don't want to look at anything else from the finance and accounting perspective. I'm only focused on free cash flow. Maybe a close second would be creditor and debtor aging. But it's probably also the type of business that needs that. Maybe in a service business, that's slightly less important. But free cash flow for me is the most important thing I look at in a business, because all other metrics are really about what is going right or what is going wrong. Free cash flow is that one really particular metric that talks about time, right? So for a business that's struggling, this tells you how much time do you have. You can then make a decision. Can we go methodically? Can we go with a great deal of investigation? Or are we in ER and we have to do medical triage right now? And that's, for me, a really powerful, singular thing that I think focusing on it as the kind of number one metric in your finances as you're trying to scale your business, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what the industry is, but just focusing on scaling and growing rather than profitably, I would say like FCF plus Lee. It just, to me, has always worked as if this is positive, everything else falls into place. You can be profitable. You can have growing revenue. You can have happy customers. You can have all of that, but still have negative cash flow. And your business isn't truly healthy. And most importantly, you as the entrepreneur, as the founder, as the person running that business, you will never feel settled and safe because you don't have time. You're short of time. So for me, that's a kind of like the biggest thing is that focus on the thing that makes you have time and give you freedom, which is cash.
Yeah, it's just
and I will ask you to define free cash flow.
Well, I think it just goes back to 101 fundamentals of a business, right? Run a business to generate profit, and otherwise you run a non-for-profit. And I think with free cash flow, what that allows you to do is it gives you more flexibility and freedom in how you run your business. And you don't necessarily need a technical accountant or accounting software to work it out. It's if you've got good reports in place and you've got if you're recording all your transactions on a timely basis, you can work that out, and then it can help you with your forecast, and it can help you with, as you said, if I've got X amount of cash in my bank, how long is that going to last? How much can I invest in the business? How much can I take out as an entrepreneur? I mean, a lot of the entrepreneurs that I know, they want to take out the cash as well, dividends as well, right?
Sure, yeah.
You've worked hard, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that is a very 101, business 101 advice that many entrepreneurs need to think about. If they don't have free cash flow, what's the plan to get to that state of free cash flow? Because maybe you're compromising margin to win customers, or maybe you're investing in a new machinery. If you don't have that now, then you need to make a plan. And if you don't have a plan for it, kind of running a charity.
And you don't have time.
Yeah.
Your business can't happen, right? And I think you said one thing that I didn't talk about, which I think is really important. And I didn't realize this when I was younger. I didn't have a great deal of financial education. I had enough, but not enough to realize this. And I think this is very important. For the most part, there's no new data that needs to be captured to understand cash flow. If you have a audited balance sheet, you already have all the necessary information for this. It's just kind of reporting it in a different way. And I think this was really for me, and I hear this from a lot of people. I can't capture any more data. My team is already this and that and things like this. No, your software that you're using today probably can generate this for you by just selecting to generate it. You're almost certainly not going to have to capture any new information. Maybe in Dubai before VAT and before corporate tax, yeah, probably you didn't have the reporting if you weren't a large international business or anything like that. But today, if you have VAT and you have corporate tax, you can press a button in whatever software you're using and get a cash flow report. And this I think is very important because people just don't look at that because they don't think that that's important, or they don't think that it's the single biggest lever that they have to make sure everything in their business has time. And for me, it's just time, right? I want to make sure that I have time to make good decisions or bad decisions or whatever it is, but I have time. And so if I have time, that means I can take business cash out. I've reduced the time in that business, but I know how much I can take out because I know how much time I have.
Yeah.
If I want to go on holiday and I know that I'm so, fundamentally important to my business that my single day presence not being there causes this catastrophic loss in my business. And if I know my free cash flow is there, I know I have the time to do that because I know how much I can afford to lose. To take your example of, buying machinery. Also, maybe it's in your business, you've got this order book. You have to get more accountants, but you have to have the accountants to get the order book. Well, you know how much you can afford to do that because you know how much time you're willing to give up. Like that becomes your currency. And I will say, after a year of free cash flow positive, I have never seen a business that didn't eventually become profitable. That always happens, because if you continuously have free cash, how could that possibly come unless you're actually generating cash, right? This is another thing, but I think people just don't think about this. And I don't want to say that like it's a question of financial literacy. There's plenty of people. I think it's just a question of like perspective.
Yeah.
Because for me, when I joined my family business, it wasn't a very profitable business or anything. And so for me, I was just like, how much time do we have? And what's the number that tells me how much time do we have? And that was it. That was the number that I found, that this is the number, this one singular thing. And I know now this is very well popularized by Amazon. I didn't know that story, that Amazon was like purposely, working exclusively on free cash flow and didn't really care about profit. And so did 20 years or whatever of zero profit, and still kept rising in evaluation. I didn't know that at the time. For me, it was just, this is my lever. I have this much time. What can I do with this much time now? Can I sell some of this time to buy something else to give me more time? Or can I buy more time by doing this? That was it. That was my lever. My lever was time. I didn't have that much of it. And this was the number that every single day when I woke up in the morning and I saw the report from yesterday, this is how much time I've left. That was it.
Avinash, it's been great having you in the show. Every time I meet you, I always learn something new. So thank you for sharing your insights, and I hope our listeners can. I'm sure they've got a lot out of this episode from your expertise, from the depth of your wide spectrum of experience in entrepreneurship. What's the best way our listeners can get in touch? And is there any final kind of closing thoughts that you wanna pass on?
As closing thoughts, just thank you, man. This was fantastic. I really love what you're doing here. I enjoy watching the episodes and hope people find value here. To get in touch with me, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, but just 𝗏𝗵.consulting. That's my website.
We'll put it on the show notes.
Perfect. Yeah, that's usually the best way to get in touch. Most things now run through that for me, so that's the best way. But no, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us on the Alphapreneurs podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating and a review. Your feedback is appreciated. For show notes and more, check the link in the description and connect to me on LinkedIn and search for Rayhan Aleem. See you in the next episode.